Hello, everybody. My name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show, and you guys are in for a treat today. So today's guest, not only is he a former, you see it on the back, he's a former football player. You know what? He has football and basketball overseas. He did amazing stuff, not just for what he actually. You guys gonna meet him right after this. Hello again, my name is Christian. I'm the host of the Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur Show, and today we have a really special guest for you. His name is Tyler Cerny, and what you guys gonna learn about it? He brings a very unique insight of leadership, personal growth, spirituality to the table, and just having a brief conversation before this episode, you know what? He went to China, and I'm a big fan of China. Our audience knows that. So for me, I'm really, really excited about this conversation. So with that, Tyler, welcome to the Disruptive Chef Show.
Thank you, brother. Excited to be here. Hopefully we can bring some of that cuisine to the States,
So we had a brief conversation before this. What is our audience looking for? What is our audience struggling with? And for me, there were so many things I absolutely resonated with Tyler on, and you guys know, so we do a little ethical stalking. I have 1.5 pages on notes about him. He probably doesn't even know about himself. But so I'm really excited about this conversation, Tyler. Yeah, and our last 50 minutes was absolutely amazing. So give our audience the 5-minute cliff note on who you are and how you got to do what you do today.
Sure, absolutely, man. Yeah, so just like you see here, I got a football behind me, sports for my whole life, man. And so I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. And what you do in Cleveland, you do two things. You either party and get in trouble or you play sports. I did a little bit of both, but the sports is what really kept me a part of a community, held me accountable. So was actually a 3-sport athlete. Got to the collegiate level, played college football, and then after that, got an opportunity to play basketball overseas in Asia, based out of Beijing, China. Was over there for about 4 years, and so sports were my whole life. And if I could jump a little bit higher, I probably would have just stayed with the sport. But I knew I had to transition eventually, and so when I was living in Asia and going to different places in different countries, I always knew I wanted to do something remote and do something location independent, and so that's when I got introduced to the online marketing world, bought different upsells and just tried to educate myself on like what I really wanted to do. And I came across one of my first mentors. He helped grow and scale Salesforce up to $100 million through outbound sales systems. And so through that process and just from learning from him, I was able to implement these strategies for organizations. And this was something that we were talking about before. When I first started, I had no branding, I just had a desire in my heart to, want to do something for myself and my family for the future. And so the offer was simple. We help you grow and scale your company. And the worst case scenario, we do all this work and we bring you 0 sales. You pay us $0 because we only get paid when you get paid. And so that was essentially the offer. The barrier was so low to enter. So anyone that is listening to this, that is looking to just make a transition, go into a new industry, and they're kind of questioning their authority, their branding, their experience, is create an offer that people can't refuse. And so that was something that's how I got started, and I've been now consulting for the last 12 years. And with all that being said, I worked with a lot of different companies, all different industries, SaaS companies. These were mostly B2B companies, live event companies, logistics companies, truck driver recruiting companies. I mean, it was just all across the board. But one of the companies that I got connected with was the largest personal development company in the world. So what they would do is they would market these live events and they would write huge checks to their speakers. And Tony Robbins was their biggest name speaker. And I know you have a lot of experience, and I know you're very familiar with Tony Robbins, but they would work with people all in the personal development space. Gary Vee, Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, Tony Robbins, those were the main ones. They had guys from the Shark Tank, Damon John, Kevin O'Leary. They did stuff with Donald Trump before he became president. And so worked with all these amazing speakers. And basically our role and our, the things that we got brought in for was, let's say 10 or 20% of the room sign up for whatever they have to offer. Well, what about the other 80% of the room?
Yeah.
So we had to create sales systems and processes and strategies to follow up with the audience because it is a business model, right? And so that was essentially kind of how I got exposed to that. But I'll never forget it. It was in LA. We were at the LA Convention Center. There's 20,000 people. There was a woman. They had this signature event called UPW. You walk on fire the first night. and she's there supporting her family. She walks on fire. She's in peak state. She throws her Amex card at us. She signs up for his $100,000 platinum partnership program. And I'm still kind of new to this world. I still am understanding the walking on fire. I'm like, oh, isn't that like a liability issue or whatever? And then I see this $100,000 mastermind. I'm like, what's a mastermind? I'm still trying to understand what all this is, because they were just like, hey, just come to an event. You'll understand what you just see.
Mhm.
And I just remember that event with so much transformation. And I was like, man, I love this. And so we would go city to city to city. Tony Robbins gave his keynote about 18 times. And from there, that's how I learned through osmosis. I learned how he was able to influence from stage, get people to not only walk on fire, but be able to sign up for his high ticket program. And then through that, I was like, you know what? I was doing the math, and you guys can do the math too. He was making millions of dollars in a weekend. And so I was like, wow, I need to start my own live event company, right? And so that's exactly what I did. And what we did was create a company focused on teaching things that they should have taught us in college. Because I also felt like, for me, that I went that route. I went the college route. I got the degree. I got that expensive piece of paper. I did all the right things. I got and I got some corporate jobs when I was in college, but I was still not able to provide for myself and my future family at the level that I wanted to. So I knew I had to do something entrepreneurial. And I knew that at a young age. I just didn't know what that looked like. And so I was always hungry to do that. And so that's essentially what the business was teaching people the things that college should have taught us. And Damon John loved it. We won some awards with it. And it was just a desire and a passion to want to help and serve people, and then get crystal clear on what problems are they facing. And a huge gap in the marketplace right now is
Mhm.
money, how to make money. Because if you think about it, a huge, and I know this is kind of moving into the next section, but one of the things I'm super passionate about is understanding, getting people out of bondage. And if people are in debt, people are in student loan debt, people are unable to pay for their current everyday expenses. They're in bondage, right? And so now, how can we get them out? Well, you have to develop the skill sets, the knowledge, and the resources to run a $1 million, $10 million company. Because you go make a sandwich, you don't have to think about it because you know it. But what about building a $10 million company? Why don't you do that? Everyone wants to create more wealth in their life, but they choose not to because they just don't have the resources, the skill sets, and the knowledge to do so. But it's all attainable. And so, that brought in amazing speakers all around the world. And then that led to me then delivering a TEDx talk. We went viral with the TEDx talk. We had close to 3 million views on how to find your life's purpose. That was the message that I delivered. And I didn't understand the statistics till after the fact, but there's over 210,000 talks
Yeah.
available. And we were one of the most watched talks in the top 500 most watched talks of all time. And so that was just a sheer blessing from God. And then through that, we've been able to work with founders, business owners, to help them elevate their brand, whether it comes to
Mhm.
speaking or whether it comes to elevating their online presence through digital assets. But it's all focusing on business owners who are looking to scale and grow to that next level.
So, Dale, I absolutely love your background. And for me, as we did our ethical stalking, for me, I love when you talk about John or Luke 14:11 is one of your things you constantly talk about. And for me, belief is one of the really big things. And it's not just a moral compass, it's also a way of living and the way you go about doing business. So I absolutely love that about you. So let's go back. So you were in sports. You had this really great opportunity, and you were in China for a few years. And my relationship with China. I'm a big fan of what's going on in China. So talk to us a little bit. Where was that decision, and what made you saying, "Hey, I'm really good at this. I want to serve my community this way." And before you even started your company, so help us understand what was going on in your mind for you to saying, I know I'm meant to do more. I know I'm meant to serve my customers differently. So help us a little bit our mindset, because a lot of our listeners here, they're doing an amazing job selling millions of dollars worth of food, but they know they meant for more. So help us understand a little bit how you made that pivot.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, right? And for me, when I was in sports, it got to for me, it was a point in my life where it was just frustrated, right?
Hmm.
Where it was kind of, I didn't really expect to get to this position in my life. I just got to a position where I was like, man, my knees are hurting, my body aches. I don't know if I can do this any much longer. Like I have to figure out a way of what am I going to do for the rest of my life. And for me, I can't just do something just to do it. Like I have to go all in. I have an extremely addicted personality, so I have to be very passionate about what it is that I'm doing. So,
Mhm.
because if I do something and I'm not passionate about it, I won't last that long, right? I need to be fully integrated mentally, physically, spiritually. And one of the things that kept coming to me, I was like, you know what? I definitely want to get into business. I like numbers, and one of the things I looked at is like I eventually want to have my own business one day. I don't know what that looks like, and this is the first thing that I would tell people. It starts with just this insatiable desire, and if you infuse faith with it, at the time, I didn't really. I had glimpses of infusing
Mhm.
faith with it now, but now I do it every single day, and I've been abiding with the Lord for the last 7 years, and this is a life hack is that if you just come to the Lord, if you're a Christian or even if you're not a Christian, I come to the Lord and I say, Lord, this mind is yours, these hands are yours, this heart, this soul. What do you want me to do today? And if you
Mhm.
just come in with that mentality
I
of
love
like,
that.
even if, again, if you're not a Christian and you're just like, hey, like I want to make a change, like, and you just like you just put it out there. And it's like, I want to make a change. I want to be alert to opportunities that are around me. I have skill sets, desires, passions within me that are yet to be fulfilled, and I want to exercise them. And it's like this, it's this mindset and this desire to not stop until you achieve it, right? Because that, and I didn't understand this until later, until looking back.
Mhm.
But those are the standards you set for yourself,
Yeah.
right? Because whether you're running an organization, you have kids, or it's yourself. What do you get away with, right? What do your
Mhm.
kids get away with? What do your employees get away with, right? That's your standard. So it's like, for me, another thing that was a huge pivotal point for me too was, not only was I frustrated, I wasn't making the amount of money I wanted. I knew I had a shift. But once I kind of started getting in consulting, I started working with companies, started making money. Money really wasn't an issue at that point, but I still had, maybe I was doing the good things, but I still maybe wasn't fulfilled and as passionate as I thought I wanted to. Um, I then got to a point where I asked the question, like I had to integrate faith into what
Mhm.
I was doing. And as a consultant, which is great with consulting, is you don't have to own the business, you don't have to create the offer. You could, they have an established brand. You could work with companies that have established brands, so you could really come plug and play into their organization
Mhm.
and just grow and scale if you can specialize in a few things. And that's essentially what I did. But then I got to a point where, if I'm serving these CEOs and business owners, how much time are they abiding with the word of Christ?
Mhm.
And if that answer is zero, what does that say about me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm going all out and putting, a lot of time, energy, and resources in building this company and supporting the CEO, and they're not supporting, and again, this is a personal decision that you have to make, whether it's in the marketplace or whether it's in your household. And that was something that I drew a line in the sand on, and I was like, you know what? Like, these companies aren't abiding with the Lord. And so that says more about me than it says about
Mhm.
them. And so I need to either partner arms with people that are, or what I did was just focusing on reading the Bible every single day.
Yeah.
And that concept, John 15, abide in him and he abides in us, it changed
Yeah.
my life forever.
I
Because
absolutely love that.
through that, man, it's like, even when I first started, man, I would read the Bible. I wouldn't understand. Things would go over my head. Different generationals and generations and all these different things. But I'm about 7 or 8 times through the Bible now, and it's like, what starts to happen is that starts to get planted within you, right? And then the words that I say here and the words that I say on stage and the things I do in the marketplace, I could sit here and say I'm this amazing smart guy, but it's all given to me from the Lord. I'm simply
I
a vessel,
I
right?
listen. I absolutely love that, and I want to kind of bring it back to our listeners. Did you hear what he said? He said, my knees hurt, my body hurt. I didn't know how much longer I can do this. How often do I hear this today from people which are in our industry? And you did something totally different. And I want to know a little bit, hey, how did that transition go from being an athlete to going and doing what you do today? Because I want our listeners to know. And the reason we call this the disruptor shift, because we want to disrupt you're thinking, because I know as I started learning about you and as I started kind of diving deeper in what you do, I was like, our listeners need to know you, because if you take that word athlete and replace it as a hospitality professional, if you follow the same path he did, there's guaranteed results. And there was one thing you did. You said, "Hey, I made decisions quick, and I totally pivot how I moved my life." And within 3 years, you're getting married, and you know, a lucky married man. So for me, all of that is a pathway of doing what you really want to do. And for me, let's go back and say, hey, how was that transition from an athlete to a business
Sure.
owner?
I'll give you this, man.
Yeah.
I'll share with the disruptive chef. I don't know if I've actually given this publicly, but I'll share this with you. There was a moment towards the end of it where, we had off season. We were traveling. I was in Bali, Indonesia at this point,
Mhm.
and I remember being in my place. It was like a 2 or 3 bedroom. It's nice for Bali, but it's still kind of like, very humbling place to live in. But
Mhm.
it's like you're by the water. It's tropical. And I remember what I did to earn cash during the off season. I would teach Chinese kids English online,
Mhm.
right? And it's very minimal, man. It was such a humbling experience, man, because I'm talking to like 3-year-olds. I'm like, Apple, say Apple, like it was just a humbling experience. And,
Yeah.
and the Lord had me there to work on my character. And those are sometimes seasons of our life. But I remember, I'll never forget this. One of the things that they said is like, they said, don't leave the Zoom. It was like a Zoom call like this. They said, don't leave the Zoom because that's what we're paying you for. It's like an employee relationship. And I remember there was a terrible, and you guys can look this up. There's an earthquake in Lombok, which was not too far from me. It was another island from where I was at, but it wasn't
Mhm.
the island I was on. But there was I felt my place start to shake. And I
Yeah.
kid you not, man, I thought the place that I was in, it was shaking. I thought this thing was going to collapse and I was going to die. I like literally ripped out my headphones. I ran out to the street. So I'm like, I'm not going to die today. Like that was a huge turning point for me because I was like, man, I was going to just be out in Bali, Indonesia, dead, teaching some kids Chinese. I was like, is that really how I want to go out? Is that really the legacy that I want to live? And is that really how it's going to come down to? So then the pivot and that transition, what I did in that moment, and again, this is, we're sharing it here on the podcast, is that I had a journal, and I kid you not, I wrote it down. I was like, I want to travel the world for free, and I want to work with Tony
Mhm.
Robbins. That was my goal. And I wrote it down, and I said it. I would say it in my bedroom before, in between calls, and I would say it with every ounce of my body. This desire piece that I was mentioning. It's like I
Mhm.
travel the world. I work with Tony Robbins, and I travel the world for free. That was what I wanted to do because I love to travel, and I wanted to work with high level people, specifically Tony Robbins, because he's had a huge influence on my life
Mhm.
as well. And so, and then you'll love this. And it didn't manifest and didn't start to create until a couple months later. But there was this opportunity that someone reached out to me. They said, "Hey, do you want to sell? Do I want to sell for this one
Yeah.
organization?" And basically how they reached out to me, there's about 12 of us. There's 12 of us that are selling this thing. It's commission only, but they get to work with this personal
Mhm.
development company. And I was like, you know what, I'm doing a couple other things. I have some consulting that I'm starting to do. I'm still kind of figure out how am I going to serve all these clients and things like that through operations and scaling of an organization. And then through that, I just remember we would call these lists of people that attended events years ago. These are people that are years ago. And I remember they were going to go to attend this event. Tony Robbins, I think Gary Vee was going to be there. They had to cancel the event, so they rescheduled it. Anyways, long story short, the speakers were different. So let's say you
Mhm.
signed up for a Tony Robbins and Gary Vee event, and then you found out that Gary Vee's not going to be there. It's just a Tony Robbins event, or it was a
Yeah. Yeah.
Gary Vee event and Tony Robbins is no longer going to be there. So I'm calling these people, and some of these people are pissed, and I'm like, what did I just get myself into, right? But we would call these people. If you made 100 calls, you wouldn't get paid.
Yeah.
So one of the things I would say to people, don't get caught up on the paycheck. Don't get caught up on the money aspect, because there was a lot of nights that I would work essentially for free for different organizations, and I put a huge emphasis on the result. And essentially, you know, I became I was one of the top sales reps for that specific section. I made the first sale. They flew me out, and then that led to me even consulting the whole entire company. Right?
Yeah.
Because that was just another way for me to establish relationships. I was like, "Hey, this is an opportunity," and then I traveled the world for free. We went to city, and I
I
worked with
love
Tony
that.
Robbins, and so it started with that seed of desire, though, of like, I'm not going to stop. This is what I want, and so get crystal clarity on the vision. And
Mhm.
so that's a huge part of it. So if someone's not where they want to be, they're looking to create their restaurant of their dreams, they're looking for that position, that business. It's what exactly are we working towards? Because a lot of people, the people will perish without a vision. And most
Mhm.
people don't have a vision. So it's like get clear on what you're trying to achieve. And if you have that on paper, say it and believe that you can achieve it. And
Yep.
then every day is a process to move and start. What can I do to start stepping into that direction? So
I love that. And a lot of our listeners probably, saying, oh my God, he sounds just like me. Because if you just listen to what he's saying, it doesn't make a difference if you sell windows or toilet seats or if you're in the food service. Because if you feel I can serve my community in a greater way, and you need to have faith. I love what you said. Hey, I just went out there and did it. And a lot of our audience don't want to make that pivot, or they're afraid of making the pivot. So what was for you the final decision, or the pivoting point for you to saying, I'm done. I don't want to do anything else. You have the earthquake on the next thing over. What was the final straw for you where you said, I need to do something else?
Well, yeah, as I'm like, as my bank account's running out of cash, and it's like, hey, man, I need to like figure some stuff out. But I made a deadline for myself, man.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, hey, if I'm going to pursue this, and this is something I've done in my life, even with basketball and sports, it's like, hey, I'm going to give myself X amount of years or this till this date. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And it's like, if I'm unable to do that, like, I need to pivot. I need to make a transition. And so with that specific story, people, I had a couple of buddies that called me. They're like, dude, I'm making these calls. No one's buying. Like, I'm done. I'm not spending any more time on this. And I said, dude, this is an opportunity to work with Tony Robbins. I would tell them that. I was like, hey, if we just stay the course, you never know, dude, this may be an opportunity where we can work directly with Tony Robbins. Like, let's not give up, because so, to answer your question, how did I make that jump? Well, it kind of everything just started unfolding because once I started getting results for the organization, like, hey, let's fly you out for this event. And then it just kind of snowballed and took off from there. But it required that sacrifice, that obedience, that discipline of like, all right, I'm not going to go out and do anything. I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to stay in the lab until I figure it out. And that's really what the mentality that it takes is like, I'm not going to stop until I make something happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Period. And as it continues to evolve, more opportunities are going to start to develop. You're going to start to develop your brand. Another thing I want to mention too is when I was during this period, I was like, there's two skills I want to learn. I want to learn personal branding and I want to learn communication.
Mm-hmm.
Because regardless of what I do, whatever organization, whatever industry that I'm in, I need to have a brand that people can trust, number one. And I also need to be able to communicate it effectively. So these are also two skills that anyone can learn and listen to right now. And that's essentially what I spent most of my time on. And so it was like constant learning, watching YouTube, reading books, until it got to a point where I could actually express and give something to the marketplace, right? Because there is that tipping point, like I would like to say I'm in control of my acceleration and the success in my life, but the tipping point came when I got so valuable enough that they couldn't ignore me,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I'm not going away. I'm going to show up. I'm going to get you results. And so it's like, that's going to create more opportunity for you. So that pivotal moment or that transition for me, it happened organically because I continued to, do the work. And I did like a 7-day juice cleanse as well, like just different things to just continue to dial in myself, work on myself when I first started, develop these skill sets, just don't stop until we get the result mentality. And then once we started getting the result, people started noticing, organizations started noticing, and they're willing to pay for that. And that's when things started to take off. But the first year is that, those first couple of years, man, it's definitely tough.
I,
And I
I
don't want people to kind of cling on to one specific moment because it was a compilation of moments, but
Mhm.
it started with that desire.
Well, listen,
And
there's a few things you said I want to quick unpack. Because you said you just ask people to go out there and do it. And I'm a big believer go out there, do what you want to do, because what you will do 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road will look totally different. But you need to go out there and find out what are you good at? What is your thing? And for me, there's something Tony Robbins teaches all the time. Hey, if something don't work, pivot, find another way of pushing there. And then if that doesn't work, let's find something else. Let's keep pushing. If this doesn't work, and if you keep doing this, you will eventually succeed. And you are a perfect example of that. And you got to work with Tony Robbins. So for me, that's just absolutely amazing. And our listeners here, they struggle with that because you know what? They were never taught to, hey, pivot and try something else. You know what? If this doesn't work, pivot and try something else. So for me, I love your message around that. I love what it also, by the way, if our listeners have to change, you guys gonna see his TED talk, and you will have so much value in that TED talk because, again, take away of what he is and put your name in it, and you will be absolutely amazed. And he feels like he's speaking to you. So I want to know, looking back, what or how did playing sports affect you? You know, how you looked at leadership, how you looked at teamwork, and how does this, or how did it transition through the years with you? Did
sure.
sports have anything to do with that?
100%, man. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, too. Well, growing up, man, sports, I was never the fastest. I was never the
Mhm.
strongest. I was never the tallest. In fact, I had a disadvantage as a little kid. I was a little chunky kid. I love food. I love actually eating food and watching the Food Channel. That's what I
Mhm.
love to do. And one of the things that I always tell people, even in business and in sports, there's two things that you can control. You can control your attitude and your work ethic. And
Mhm.
that's what I did every single day when I showed up to practice. I was the most positive dude. I was always smiling. If I got knocked down, I was like, okay, let's get another play. Like I was always so positive. I was always forward looking, and my work ethic. I was always the first one in and the last one out. And I took pride in that. I said, even though I'm not the best guy, even though I'm not good, because I played with a lot of talented guys. Some guys that would just roll out of bed and not even go lift weights, and they would just, run like a 4.5 40, like just sheer athletes.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's not me. Like I have to work for everything that I have, and that was another the kind of motto. It's like you don't get what you're given. You don't get what you're given. You get what you earn, right? And so I looked at it everything as an opportunity to earn my right and earn my
Mhm.
stripes on the field and on the court because I never expected anyone to give me anything. And so,
Yeah,
but it comes down to those two things, those two variables: the work ethic and the work and our
I love
attitude.
that.
And
I
same
love
thing in business, where it's like, hey,
that.
the one thing I did want to say too about that last point, it's just get clear on the vision, and then it comes down to two things. Do I either know how to achieve the vision, or do I need to figure out how to achieve the vision?
Mhm.
Because if I like, hey, I really want to do this, but I have no idea what to do. Well, do I need to work with people that have gone out and done it? Do I have to need to acquire the skills? And for me, that's what I needed to do. I needed to work with people that have, like a Tony Robbins who runs multiple companies, multi-millions of dollars of companies. Like I needed to be surrounded by people like that to model and learn from it. And then once you kind of learn it, then it's a matter of, do I know how to achieve it? And if you know how to achieve the vision, am I doing the work
I
every
love
single
that.
day?
So
Right. And
true.
most of us are at that point, like our health and fitness. It's like, hey, I want to get healthy. I want to do this. Well, you know what to do, but are you doing the work?
Mhm.
And this part here, we all are going to come to a point in our life where it's like, hey, I want to read more books. I want to get more knowledge. I want to develop my mindset and all this stuff. And this is all great. But it eventually gets to a point where, I wake up going to the weight room, there's no one there. And I got to sit on that bench and I got to do the work. Right. And then it's just a
Mhm.
matter of consistently showing up and doing the work and having a positive attitude because we get to do this,
Mhm.
because I remember playing with guys like, oh, we got to lift, or, they would complain. And it's like, dude, we have an opportunity to lift weights, right? We have an opportunity to be in business. We have an opportunity to be on this podcast virtually, right? We have an opportunity to have, beautiful children from China, right? Like everything is an opportunity
Mhm.
and it should be rewarded. And so it's just that level of attitude, that mentality, and that translates into the work ethic. And that led me to, becoming defensive player of the year and becoming, getting an opportunity to play basketball as well in China. I actually got cut my junior year in high school. So, like, dude, like, I tell you this from experience. Like, I played with some really good people and I wasn't the best dude, but the only thing that kept me going was my work ethic and my attitude to just stay positive.
I absolutely love that. And listen, you made some really bold moves in your life. So talk to our listeners a little bit. Hey, what drives you to act, decisively? Number one, and then maybe that's a two-fold question. And how do you balance risk with rewards? So for a lot of our audience knows they need to do something else. Deep down, they honestly know they need to do something else, but sometimes they get scared away by the risk. And you made some really bold decisions in your life. So how do you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because before it has evolved. But for me, the upside always has to be there. Like, what are we working towards? Because if the vision's there, the upside's there, I'm going to consider it. Right.
Yep.
And I'm not saying this is good or bad because you obviously have to look at the downside. You have to look at the risk because when I first started, some of these bold decisions I made, I just looked at the upside. Right.
Yep.
I looked at what's possible, what can be achieved. And if it's possible, let's go make it happen. And obviously, there are certain decisions that require more investment, require more risk. And so that was one of the things that I had to learn personally through personal experience. Like some of these events, like we did an event in Miami, that event on my LinkedIn with Damon John, that event cost me about like $250,000. Now that's cover, all the marketing, the venue, everything. Now it's like we got to get investors. We have to get things like, I'm not saying I paid for all that myself, but those are the costs just to put on an event at the magnitude that we did, right? And that was one of the boldest, riskiest decisions because I went all in on that. Like the business all the cash flow business or all the money I was making in my consulting business, I went all in on that. So for me, I'm an interesting person to ask that because I'm willing to put it all in. Now, at the time, I just got married. I didn't have a family, so I had the luxury to do that. But I looked at the upside and I also looked at, what are we truly trying to accomplish here? And it was something that was much bigger than myself, right? And so that's something that I always look at is this like, what's the intention behind this? Because if it's just about me to make money, then what I found, you may be able to make some short-term profit and that's great, but it's not sustainable for me. But I want a sustainable option. Like if I go all in on this business model or go all in on this thing, what's the impact that it can produce? And for me, the upside of hosting a live event company, I mean, it just was so many positive upsides to that. I get to speak on stage with Damon John. Like I get to share my message. I get to build amazing relationships. Get to build a network. Like it was just all these boxes were being checked. So it kind of outweighed the negative. Well, what if it fails? Well, we're kind of out that money or whatever the case may be. There's a risk that we put all this stuff on that no one shows up. There is always that possibility of negativity, but it was just like, you know what? If to kind of close out this point, it's peace.
Yeah.
It's peace, right? You need to have peace around the decisions that you're making. And that's really the dictator that I have even to this point in my life. Do I have peace around it? Because there could be amazing, huge decisions that I need to make, and I still have peace. I don't know what the answer is or what the solution is in the moment, but I have peace that we're going to figure it out. That's kind of how I had when I got married. And that's a whole other story. I got married in 3 days, and that's a whole other conversation. Met my wife on Friday. We got married on Monday.
If you would have more time, I wanted to know a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. We can get into that too because the relationship plays a huge role. Because when I was doing the live event company, I was a single guy when I first started, and I got married, and that definitely changes the business. And you do have to make decisions differently if you're married. It's not just about you; it's about the union that you have with your wife. And I value my wife over any other business. And so if a business is going to, put anything even on the line for that. I need to adjust the decisions that I
Mhm.
make, and I can't make risk just for myself because now I have someone
Yeah.
else involved as well.
I
So,
absolutely love that, and you
don't,
need to promise me
yeah,
you need to come back, and we need to have a conversation around that because for me, that alone, and our listeners, I what I hear all the time is Christian, it's not easy to make decisions for me because I have all of these dependents, or it's
sure,
not easy for me because I just married somebody, or I want to marry somebody. So for me, I want to have this, I have a whole conversation around it because for me, that's the number one reason why people not doing what they're doing. It's the number one reason what holds people back. It's not the money.
sure.
It's not the connection. They are so worried. How am I going to do this? Because I do have an income now. If I do this totally different, how am I going to do this with relying on somebody else? So for me, that needs to be, you got to promise us to come back because this is a conversation I want to
Yeah,
have with
well,
you.
one thing
This is
I'll say to that
very
group, one thing I'll say to that group, Christian, is if they're in that place where they're doing a lot of things, they have a lot of dependents, they have wife, kids, and
Mhm.
things that they need to be focusing on is their energy levels, right? Like, are they doing things that
Yeah.
are taking away from their energy or adding to it? Because at that time, they have time's very limited, right? Because
Mhm.
you go to one thing and then you got kids and all these different things where it's like you have to invest in things that invest in your energy. Because if you don't have enough energy to do the things to spend time with your kids, spend time with your wife, then that's when things start to fall apart, right?
Yeah.
And so making sure that you're investing time to things that give you life and give you energy. And that could be different things. For me, I like to play basketball. So I still play basketball 3 to 4 times a week. So you still have to carve out that time for yourself to give you those energy like
Mhm.
activities. But, and then it's like also just taking inventory. Because
Mhm.
if you have kids, a wife, and you're able to consistently show up and provide for them, that's a tremendous blessing. Even though like
Yeah.
when people are in it, they're like, man, I gotta go to work or I gotta do this. Like it talks about that in the Bible. Like when you have offspring, that's a blessing,
Mhm.
and even have three beautiful girls from China, like that's a blessing, and so it's like if someone's kind of like lacking fulfillment or maybe unsatisfied, I would even challenge it and say, hey, maybe you are exactly where you need to be. Maybe
Yeah.
we just need to change the perspective and say, hey, how can I be a steward of the resources I've been given? And if you do really want out from your current situation, it's then just taking it day by day and saying, hey, I need to be a steward of the resources I've been given. I'm not just making decisions for myself.
Mhm.
I have an army of kids and an army of people that I need to decide for. Lord, continue to guide my steps and continue to lead me the way that you want to lead me. And if it be your will, this is what I would like to be doing. Like, then it's still getting clear on that
Mhm.
vision. So maybe that vision doesn't actualize overnight, but I'm conscious of it. I know what opportunities are going to be serving it or not. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, that's where I want to go. This is my current situation, and I'm going to continue to be a steward. I'm still going to give it everything I have, and I'm still going to be positive about the situation.
So good.
And
So
that's
good.
tough when life comes at you, right? And it's one thing to sit here on this podcast to do it, but it's another thing to be like, you know what? This is tough, and I got to show up every
Mhm.
single day. You know what I mean? And so
Mhm.
that's what I would say to the individuals like
I,
that.
I I absolutely love that, and you are spot on. And I want to have a whole conversation around that because when you go out there and you speak and so many other things, you refer a lot back to that. So for me, that's super powerful. And first off, I'm looking at the clock here. For me, I can talk to you forever. So I really appreciate you coming on, spending so freely of the gift of your time, and we absolutely value that. But more than ever, we really want to play something called rapid fire question food service edition. So, but
Let's
before we
do
do
it.
this, before we do this, tell our listeners how can they learn more about you, how can they get a hold of you, and how can they come into your cycle of
Sure.
influence.
Social media is probably, if you type me in on Google, LinkedIn, or Instagram, those are probably the best ways. Tyler Cerny. So those are the best ways to connect with me. You can send me a connection request on LinkedIn if it's
Mhm.
more professional. Instagram,
Yep.
I keep it professional as well, but it's more lifestyle and stuff like that. But Instagram or LinkedIn, I would say they can
Awesome.
reach out to me.
Thank you. And to our listeners, we will have information on the show notes below. Also, what we think, what some of the key takeaways, which we absolutely need to look at and listen to it again. So, if you could please leave us a like on this episode. Also, like us. What did you like and what did you didn't like about this guy? And then, obviously, we take that what he didn't like off because hey, we are all positive here. So, let us know what was one or two things from you where you said, hey, I need to make that pivot or I need to look at that. So be interested in knowing. So with that, let's go and play rapid fire question food service edition. So brand new off the printer. So for our listeners which haven't heard us do this, so my team changes these questions every week. And there's some really good oldies and goodies on it. There's some really hard ones on it. And, because we want to challenge Taylor here. So give us a go ahead. Are you ready to play rapid fire question food service?
Yes, one disclaimer: anything that comes out is fully responsible for Christian's fully responsible for the answers and questions of this outcome. So,
okay,
but yes, I'm ready to go.
So the way it works, we have 25 questions here. I will ask you for a number. You give me the number. I read out the question. And then it's always answer the same question, yes or no, and why, because we want to know why you say yes or why you say no. So are you ready to play? Okay, awesome.
Yes.
So with that, give me a question between
19.
Number between 19. Should more dishes be named after people like, hey, heartbreaker pie or something like that? Yes or no, and why?
It depends. I would say no because there's a lot of places that name dishes after famous people. But if the actual person has eaten that dish and they come to your spot as a local and a regular, I would say yes. If that is no, then I won't piggyback off of that. But if I know like Elvis Presley and he orders a peanut butter and banana sandwich and he came to my restaurant, I would say, hey, do you want the Elvis Presley? So yeah, I would if it's real, but I wouldn't just do it for a marketing tactic.
Okay, we need to take Elvis Presley quote off, but I agree with you. Okay, give me a number between 1 and 25.
3.
3. Okay, 3. We have, hey, is it okay to serve a cocktail in a cereal bowl if it means just to mess with people? Yes or no, and why?
Well, you look at Sugar. I think Sugar is a restaurant that's done that pretty well, where they give you crazy things. Dude, to be honest, man, people love that stuff. So I would look at the market, and I got to serve my customers. And so if they're like, give me the cocktail in a cereal bowl, I would say yes. But me personally, initial reaction, I'd say no. That sounds like a terrible idea. But you never know, man. Depending on the market and where you're at, some people might love that.
I totally agreed. Give me a number between 1 and 25.
Number 5.
Ooh, 5 is an oldie but goodie. Pineapple on the pizza. Yes or no, or why?
No. I like the meat on the pizza, but if it's there, I'll eat it, man. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I'm actually not a big pizza guy. The way it makes me feel, but if pizza's in front of me with pizza or meat, I'll eat it. But preferably no pineapple.
There's a whole movement to get the pineapple back on, but I agree with you. Pineapple is a dessert; it shouldn't be on it. Okay, give me a number between 1 and 25.
21.
Ooh, 21. Should every menu have a mystery dish, or should it be just something to mess around with them? Yes or no, and why?
I'm a full believer in the mystery item. Yeah, I love the mystery, the secret menu at Starbucks and the secret menu at Chipotle, and definitely. Because that gives it exclusivity. You now have locals and that are like a part of something. It's like, I want that dish that not a lot of people know about. So absolutely, that's a firm yes.
Okay, last question. Give me a number between 1 and 25.
15.
15. Should brunch be served 24/7? No questions asked. Yes or no, and why?
Absolutely. Gotta have breakfast 24/7. I can eat breakfast any time of the day. That is one thing. No, I'm glad we end with that question, because it's like, if we got hot items like McDonald's breakfast or whatever, it's closed at 11. I think some of them have changed it, but it's like the one time I want certain things, it's like it's not even available. Definitely, I would make it available. So I'm a firm believer. We can put that in the the legislature, 24/7 breakfast or brunch.
And that completes Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition. So, Taylor, thanks for being part of the Disruptive Chef Show. You got to promise me for a 2.0. Thanks for playing full out on Rapid Fire Question Food Service Edition. We do this for two reasons. Number one, we want to make sure, by the way, to our listeners, nobody ever seen those questions before. They change constantly. So even if you listen to a previous episode, you will not find the same number of questions on what we have. So thanks for being here and being kind enough to playing food service edition on rapid fire questions. And the reason we're really doing this is we want to make sure people relate to you and make sure that's real. So for me, I absolutely love that. With that, also, thanks for being here and thanks for the gift of your time. So with that, give us your final words of wisdom to anybody who says, oh, this Tyler is up to something. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to it earlier, and one of the things I always tell people is one of my favorite verses is Luke 14, verse 11. Those who humble themselves will be exalted, and those who exalt themselves will be humble. So I would just say, anytime we're in a situation where we don't like our situation, it's like we're the main focus, right? It's like I have this expectation that's not being met in whatever area of my life. I would flip that and say, hey, because I've been there, Quit. If I exalt myself, someone or something's going to quickly humble me. But if I can humble myself, then quickly I can be exalted. And so the closer, there's this quote that says, the closer you get lower to the ground, the higher you'll be elevated and raised. And so the closer you can just think less about you and more about others and more about the creator or Jesus or whatever you believe in, then that's like that's the key to life. Because then at that point, you're going to have peace. You're going to stay humble, and you're not going to let ego and the bitterness, things of this world come into your heart and give you frustrations, bitterness, because those aren't the fruits of the Spirit. Those aren't the fruits of what we want to live by. So stay humble, stay happy, work hard, and do it for your loved ones and have fun with it. And smile. I would say that's the last thing too. Do something that you genuinely enjoy, because we do things like, even in sports, some things can become a routine. It's like, still have fun with this, still have a smile on your face, and never lose that joy in what it is that you do. Because if you do that with a smile, and even if you're cleaning a toilet with a smile, it's pretty hard to be unhappy in that situation, right? So do it with a smile, do it with a level of excellence with whatever you do, and stay humble.
I really appreciate it. So, Taylor, I really appreciate the gift of your time. Thanks for being here and spending over 40 minutes with me. So thank you for that. I absolutely love the conversation. We need to do a 2.0 of that, because I'm so interested in how do you manage a business if you have responsibility? And that's, for me, just absolutely huge. So with that, I want to say thanks for being here today. And to our listeners, until next time, disrupt your kitchen, fire up your career, stay hungry for change. I'm Christian, your Disruptive Chef Entrepreneur host. I'm signing off. That means Tyler and I are out of here. So with that, be the change, be the challenge, and be the chef who sets the world on fire. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Christian. Thank you all.
Our listeners, just, bon appetit and stay disruptive, everybody. Thanks, and we see you at the next show.